Right, so it was a crunch game at the Emirates. Arsenal losing 1-0 to Paris Saint-Germain. And now that casts quite a lot of doubt about, some of the permutations that were done even before the game. That whenever the Champions League finale is at the Allianz Arena or in Germany, an English club could win it. And then every year, if a pope should die, then it means an English club also goes on to win it. But then all hope is not lost for us now because there's still 90 minutes to be played in Paris. That's next week. In the next, 7 days, that game will be coming off. But then we are here around Damsuman Junction, and it's the Spices Kitchen. That's where we are bringing to you live the watch along Champions League night. And my name is Josiah. I have two gentlemen over here with me. We'll be talking about the game, all the highlights, the actions from the game. So it was Ousmane Dembélé's 4th-minute strike that separated the two sides. So Arsenal came close in the second half. They struck through Mikel Merino. It was a thumping header, but then unfortunately VAR had to rule out that goal. So it still remained PSG 1-0. They were so good. They were so dominant. They were very, very disciplined, especially defensively, to see through the first leg of this game. So do you think it's advantage Arsenal, PSG, or you think Arsenal have got what it takes to stage a comeback in the second leg? Welcome, gentlemen. First, Atiga Mauli, and then also Delali. Delali, first of all, Arsenal, after, walloping Madrid, we are thinking, you've eliminated the defending champion, so PSG shouldn't really be a worry. But PSG have also shown that, under Luis Enrique, they're a team to, to really take seriously. But quickly, what do you make of the game we just witnessed?
I think it's been an interesting game. I think the scoreline doesn't really depict the game, in my opinion. I think it's a game that was open. You could have seen a lot of goals in the game. PSG themselves had a couple of chances. I don't think PSG will end this game really excited because of the results, because they had chances and moments in the game that they could have even scored more. Arsenal themselves, in as much as they lost this game, created a couple of chances. And Martinelli had about 2 chances. Zaka had 1. And even Arsenal ended up scoring a goal and it got cancelled. So it means that if you did not watch the game and you see the scoreline, you may think it was a very close game. But in my opinion, I think it was an end-to-end action. It was more open. I think PSG were very confident, and that's something that really helped them. The fact that they came to England against Liverpool and managed to beat them, I think that game really gave them a lot of confidence coming to play against Arsenal, because they realized that if they play against any team that opens up and they are confident enough and they open up, they can really give them a worry. And I think that's what PSG they started quite well. And in my opinion, I think the Arsenal team did not really start well. There were too much spaces in the team throughout, but even the first half was very bad. And I think PSG just took advantage of it and just got an early goal, which really helped them. And even after they scored, they were basically the perfect side. I think it's been an excellent game. Maybe we'll go into details of it and talk about other things. But prelims, I'm going to say that it's been pretty much a beautiful game.
Interesting. After 90 minutes, it was action-packed, end-to-end stuff for us. But you think it's a deserving scoreline for Paris Saint-Germain? Looking at the opposition they face in Arsenal, you think, all things being equal, PSG deserve to win this one?
Well, Josiah, I don't think that it is right for me to say that PSG deserved to win or they deservedly won. Because you can segment the totality of the 90 minutes into different spheres. If you look at the first 20 to 25 minutes, PSG were very dominant, totally dominant. To the extent that if you look at the possession and if you look at the statistics, it clearly showed that Arsenal were not into the game in the first minute to the first 25th minute, and that is where PSG were able to accept their dominance, and they were able to also get a goal as early as the 4th minute. So from the 20th minute or from the 20th to the 25th minute to the end of the first half, Arsenal came into the game. That was where you realized that they were able to push the Canarians a bit forward, but majority of the play were through the middle, because they were not able to disperse the ball very well because of the lack of somebody who understands, somebody who could control the game through passing and then through his ability to break out play. And you could also see that they lacked the presence of Partey in that first half because they were not able to control the game. Emery was able to, take the game away from them. Kvaratskhelia was able to, take the ball away from Timber as well. And then on the other flank, you realize that Dowie what was the name?
Desiree Doué.
Dowie was able to, control the game as well. So you from the first half, if you segment it into two parts, PSG dominated the first 25 minutes, but the rest of the game, no one particular team was dominant. It was an end-to-end game. So you can characterize the game in the first half in these two segments.
But then tactically, we've seen PSG and how dominant they can be, especially in midfield with Fabian Ruiz, Joao Neves, and then also Vitinha. You just juxtapose this midfield trio against that of Arsenal. You think they were superior on the day, and that was how PSG managed to win the game.
And no, they were not superior on the day. You see, if you look at the technical, when you want to look at the qualities of a player, you would have to take it from two angles: technical and tactical. You understand? Because no matter how good a player you are, you must be able to understand and appreciate the role that has been given to you.
Yeah.
And both set of midfielders, to me, are both technically and tactically very brilliant. Because if you look at the midfield trio of Arsenal in their 4-3-3 shape compared to the shape of PSG, because they line up in a 4-1-2-3 formation, depending on the quality and the technical players that you have, it determines the shape of your team. So I would say that the PSG were very confident in leaving only one defensive midfielder, not necessarily a defensive midfielder, because they knew that they were going to keep the ball very well. So they don't necessarily need a defensive midfielder. Arsenal, on the other hand, needed a defensive midfielder because they knew from the beginning of the game they were more in the defensive setup. It means that you needed a defensive midfielder. And Declan Rice is not a defensive midfielder. It's more a box-to-box midfielder. And you could see he was not able to make up play. So tactically, you realize that Arsenal did not set up to defend, but the pressure that was coming from PSG made them defend. But it was not an intentional setup. And you see, one thing I like about the game from Arsenal's perspective is the fact that even though they were under pressure from the first minute and conceded in the fourth minute, they did not collapse. They came into the game technically. Saka got more of the ball. That my only problem from a player's perspective was the fact that Odegaard did not really control the game. And if you don't have a Partey who is going to control the game from deep line midfield, then you would have somebody to control the game from the number 10 position. And that is what Odegaard did not do today. He failed to exert himself on the game and then left the whole work for Saka to do. And you realize that the way Saka was cutting in today was different from the way he was cutting in against Madrid from both the first leg and the second leg. He was not cutting in to create the fouls that he created against Madrid. I do not know why, because he was releasing the balls quite early today compared to against Madrid, where he was holding on to the ball and then inviting the fouls against the Madrid team.
But interestingly, we've seen, tactically how Arsenal played against Real Madrid. Now we are looking at an Arsenal side that approached this game with numerous injuries, players on the injured list. So there's no Kai Havertz, there's no Jorginho, there's no Gabriel Jesus, Gabriel Mihalis is missing, there's no Ricardo Calafiori. If you're Arteta, you'll be thinking, okay, with all these injuries, losing 1-0 to PSG at least should be okay heading into the second leg.
Well, I think the names that you've mentioned, not many of them have played an integral role in Arsenal's campaign in the Champions League. I think apart from Thomas Partey, who has been integral in the team's play, these names that you've mentioned are not really that important in respect to how they played in the Champions League. So for me, I think it's only Thomas' absence that's really affected the game. And it did affect them because of how Arsenal needed to play. Because you could realize that they wanted to play from the back. They wanted to start from the back, and they needed a player who could control the game and easily pass the ball around and progress the defense and the attack. I realized that Arsenal struggled with that because in most cases when they wanted to start from the back, it was just more square passes because they lacked a defensive midfielder who has the confidence to play under pressure and just release the ball calmly and just move it forward. And I think that's what they lacked in the game. And first talked about the fact that Xhaka was not really involved in the game. yes, he had the ball, but sometimes
Was it a marking from Nuno Mendes that actually?
not necessarily is. It was the kind of balls he received as a forward. You are as good as the quality of passes that comes to you, and the zones at which you receive the ball. There are some zones that when you receive the ball, you are forced to just do a one-touch pass, and there are zones that when you receive the ball, you are forced to invite the defender and take him on one-on-one. In moments like there were moments where he took one-time shots where he was later flagged offside. You could realize that at that point he was closer in the box, but in most cases he was forced to come and receive the ball because there was not Odegaard, Declan Rice were struggling to find him. That's something that Thomas has. Thomas can just find Saka with just a single pass and break the defense line of PSG. I think that's what Arsenal struggled with. They couldn't beat the press. There were too much spaces in their midfield simply because they were always in and out of position. And you realize that PSG always took advantage of Hakim Ziyech's ability to invert into the midfield. Because whenever PSG has the ball, he goes all the way and inverts into the midfield. And sometimes goes all the way and joins the attack because they realize that Arsenal lacks the ability to quickly progress the ball. Do you get it? So they know that without Thomas, Arsenal will not be able to progress the ball very faster. So then they can push defenders up front and go and worry. And there was a time that Xhaka, Hakim Ziyech made a cross, and it was Marquinhos who was on the edge of it. Clearly, it was that they realized that Arsenal were struggling to play the quick counter breaks because they lacked that particular passer in the midfield. So if I'm a coach and I'm going to play against Arsenal, and I realize that they won't play quick breaks because there's no passer there. What they will do is when they have the ball, they'll just pass 1, 2, 3. I'll have the liberty to push for men up front because when you get it, you spend at least 2 minutes before you get into my house.
Exactly.
That's what happened in this game, and I think PSG took advantage of it. However, Arsenal themselves had their moments, in my opinion. I think, yeah, PSG
Did they create enough on the day?
They didn't. That's
with the exception of that Mikel Merino goal that was chalked off. You could barely count the number of chances Arsenal created.
To be fair, they didn't create clear goal scoring opportunities, but there were moments where they had their chances that on any day they should be able to score. Games like this, you don't need an empty net to be able to score. The goal that PSG scored, it was a good play, but not an open empty net. What's his name? Dembélé didn't even have the right technical, didn't even hit the ball right. But it's just because there was power and he went far end. So in moments like this, games like this, you don't necessarily need an open net chance to score.
But talking about a very poor Arsenal team, like, come on, this is one of the poorest games. And you're looking at Saka being isolated for larger parts of the game, Martinelli being average, Trossard missing. It looked like Pacho and Marquinhos did a good job. Who do you say your player of the game was for Arsenal? If you were to just pick a player out of the 11 that featured, even with Ben White and others coming on, who do you think your player of the match for Arsenal would have been?
Well, you would have to once again, pick a player from two perspectives. I always want to, segregate what makes a player good or what makes a player bad. You understand? I mean, is it tactical? Is it technical?
But in this context, 90 minutes after Arsenal lost.
I would say David Raya. You understand?
Because you'd go for Raya.
Yeah, because he made some fantastic saves. But you see, let's not even try to choose the player who was best on the team. But let's look at what they failed to do. You understand? I mean, if the lad did indicated rightly that what's the name? Hakimi was inverting. I get to the point. So how do you take advantage of that? You have a player in Martinelli who has got pace, but it's not a good dribbler. So what do? When Declan Rice gets the ball from defensive midfield, you don't even have to raise up your head before you know that the pass should go to him. I get to the point because there's a lot of spaces behind Hakimi.
And there was one instance we saw that ran through midfield and, Trossard was on the ball and it nearly cost.
That is why I'm saying that enough of those balls were not put into the right spaces because Declan Rice do not have the ability to find those spots. You see, you can close your eyes and find the spots, then when the ball comes to you. Alexander Partey could close his eyes and then find the pockets of spaces that are left in between Hakimi and what's the name? I've forgotten his name. And Pacho and then Marquinhos. But apart from Alexander Partey, the only person who has the ability to have done that was Martin Odegaard. But on the day where they gave him the balls at the right place, you see, one thing that the lad did hit on that I like is the fact that when you have attackers, you would have to give them balls at where they have the most advantage. But if you are giving them the balls where they don't have the advantage, it means that what? They would have to release the ball quickly.
But did PSG give them that luxury? We've seen a very hard-working PSG midfield. Did they give Arsenal, the luxury to even put in quality passes?
Oh, of course, they had movement, they had spaces. If you look at the what's the name, the final third balls to Saka and then Martinelli in particular, they had spaces, but the balls were not going. You see, the space can be there, but if the passer of the ball do not find the right pocket, you can see the space as big as it is. You understand? But people run into the space. So are you able to gauge the ball? Are you able to see the space right on time? Because football is played in the moment. The moment a second passes, the moment 2 seconds passes, it means that space is not going to be there again. Yeah. So even though the space was there, it has been occupied now. So even if the player is in a good position, then you had spoiled the move there. So it depends on where the balls are going to be channeled through. So you realize that Martinelli was not able to effectively exploit the spaces that Hakimi had left. Not necessarily because he had a bad game, but because Declan Rice was not able to find him. But you see, sometimes you would also have to create the opportunity for the midfielder to see you. He was not making the runs, because if you make the runs, the passer is forced to give you the ball. Exactly. But you see, one thing that we would have to make lucidly clear is the fact that there's a distinctive difference between Saka and Martinelli. Okay. Saka does not play in behind the defenders. He wants to come short, get the ball, and then dribble. Martinelli can come short, he can play behind the defenders. So they did not take advantage of the strength of their forward liners. That was the main problem on the day.
Interesting. But what are Arsenal supposed to do right? Yeah, we know Partey will definitely be featuring in the second leg. But then does that give them, that shape again? Because right from the onset, moving Mikel Merino from the false nine to midfield and then replacing him with Leandro Trossard was obviously a problem for Arsenal. It's something they've not tried for a long time. You think now, going back to default settings, having every player available for selection for some time now would actually give them what they want?
Yeah, I think it changes everything. Like, we are not overemphasizing Partey's importance in this Arsenal team, but we have to be honest and admit that he was, like, his absence was everything, and his involvement in the game is everything. We saw again the 2-leg against Real Madrid. Any player who plays against Real Madrid's midfield and manages to boss them with these characters that they have, not to say individually, but I mean the character that Madrid comes with it and its players, and for you to be able to boss it and control it is everything. And it's simply because of how Arsenal needs to play, and that's how Partey is able to excel and also helps the team to grow. It's not as if Arsenal has another option that they can play if they don't have Thomas. Do you get me? They still play the same way, but Thomas is the only person who can do what they need to be able to be successful. And for me, if he comes around, he frees everybody. Declan Rice gets the opportunity to move forward, makes a lot of runs, because Thomas, in as much as he's also a very good passer of the ball, he has the ability to break lines and intercept the balls. So you are confident that he can stay behind, receive the ball as far as in his half, and just a single pass, there's a counter-attack. Those things are divine. Those things are special in a midfielder. If you have a DM who has the ability to break lines, like counter-break, your opponent is attacking, he receives the ball in your half, finds the attacker, and so he's had the ability to turn a defensive move into an attacking move, and that's what Thomas gives you. So that's what Arsenal needs now, because there were moments where there was too much spaces in the Arsenal midfield, because they were just all over the place, and there were moments where there was a disjoint between the midfield and the attack, because they were just passing square passes. The ball goes to the goalkeeper, comes back to wide. Like, you get what I was like? They were just passing the ball around us, because there was no midfielder.
Nothing special.
There was no midfielder who was confident enough and say, "Give me the pass." That can I stay? I'll give you the pass. That's what Partey does. Says everybody stay. I'm in charge.
Let me just get things done. But honestly, see, we sum up this Arsenal performance and it's average. But then we talk a bit about PSG, Donnarumma, and then also to some extent we could talk about Dembélé. These were the game changers for them. Dembele's goal getting them, a huge advantage. And then Donnarumma's masterclass between the sticks. Come on, we cannot talk about PSG's win without talking about their Italian goalkeeper, can we?
It, that is why when you look at the Champions League winners over the past couple of years, there's one distinctive factor with them. They've had great goalkeepers. You understand? You talk about Madrid. They've had what's the name? The Belgian goalkeeper Courtois. One of the best goalkeepers in the world currently.
Keylor Navas at some point.
At some point, you understand? And you see,
Navas.
when Kylian Navas was at Madrid, he was practically one of the best goalkeepers in the world before he moved to PSG. And then you look at Chelsea when they won in 2021. They had Edward Mendy. That season was fantastic. You go to Bayern. They've had Manuel Neuer. They've gone to what's the name? Man City, where they have what's the name? Edison.
Yes.
You understand? So if you don't have a solid goalkeeper, it's going to be difficult for you to go far in the Champions League because you don't necessarily have to depend on your attack to always win your games. You understand? Because imagine if you are leading 1-0, going into the dying embers of the game, and then your goalkeeper is not able to, save shots. It's going to be difficult for you to always be reliant on your attackers because if you segregate matches, you can score 1 or 2. But imagine if you concede 1 or 2, then it means that all your efforts has been made redundant. That is why it is very imperative on a team that is willing to go far in the Champions League or to win trophies to have a very, very solid goalkeeper. And in Donnarumma, they have a very solid goalkeeper, notwithstanding the fact that sometimes he creates outlets, you understand? But on the day, he's been fantastic. And then not to just mention Donnarumma, you look at Vitinha, you understand? I mean, you realize that he played as a DM alone. You understand? Against the attacking trio of Arsenal, but he was still able to, hold the midfield solidly. And remember that Vitinha is not just your typical defensive midfielder who only breaks up attacks. He's comfortable with the ball. He's able to
Quite a playmaker, isn't
quite a playmaker. But you see, now one thing that I have seen, or one thing that is popping up, is the fact that defensive midfielders are not necessarily defensive midfielders no more. You understand? They are trained to be more comfortable on the ball. They are trained to be passers of the ball because if your only quality as a defensive midfielder is to break up plays, it's going to be difficult for you to make it into the first 11 of most of the footballing teams that we have currently. So if you have an added quality that is going to make it that's going to make you inseparable from your role as a defensive midfielder. So if you look at somebody like let's go back, somebody like N'Golo Kante, apart from him being a solid defensive midfielder, he has other qualities that you cannot take away from him. He drives the ball, he can tackle, he can pass the ball, he can get you a couple of goals. So if you add all this as an attribute, it's going to be difficult for any player to take it out of that. And then before Dela comes in, you see, we have to appreciate what Dembélé has been able to do this season. The fact that he went to Barcelona and wasn't able to come into his stride, he's coming to this PSG team. And you see, I can tell you for a fact that he's the leader of this team. Everything is built around him, and he's carrying that mantle superbly. And if PSG should go on to win this trophy, it's going to be largely dependent on the effort of the team collectively, but most importantly, Dembélé.
Interesting. Let me end with you quickly. You think with this scoreline, PSG are favorite to get into the finals?
Yeah, obviously they are. They are favorites, but I think Arsenal will put up a fight. I think the second leg will be the proper game. Arsenal, with Thomas coming around, a lot of things will change in the game. Arsenal has it in them to score a goal. It's about how PSG will be able to prevent them from scoring more than one. I think the second leg PSG are leading, but they will not go home comfortably. The second leg will really, really be a tough one.
All right, thanks so much, gentlemen. Atiga Mauli Falls and then also Delali. So we brought you a live, not really live, but then the watch along, interaction with fans, and then also, viewers from the Spice Kitchen on Damsuman Junction, where we got to witness that game at the Emirates between Arsenal and then also Paris Saint-Germain. After 90 minutes, there was just one goal in it, but then lots and lots of talking points. Dembélé getting the goal for Paris Saint-Germain as they head back to the Parc des Princes for the second leg. My name is Josiah. Thanks, gentlemen, for making time. Not forgetting that tomorrow again, I will be bringing to you that game between Barcelona and then also Inter Milan. But don't forget to subscribe to our channel, like we always say. And then also you can hit us up with your location. We'll be there to cover a UEFA Champions League game. Bye.